Every leader eventually faces a moment that changes them, not because they failed publicly, but because they barely survived privately. This podcast exists because of one of those moments. Please follow us on Spotify so you never miss an episode. This podcast is about leadership, faith, resilience, and purpose. It's about what happens after the storm, when the noise fades and the dust settles, and you're left with hard questions about who you are and what you believe and how you're going to move forward. This podcast was born out of a real storm, one that nearly ended my life while climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. But the truth is, the mountain wasn't the first storm I faced, and it wasn't the most important one either. This first episode is about how it all started. Long before I ever set foot on a mountain in Africa, my life had already unraveled. I went through a divorce that stripped away more than just a marriage. It stripped away certainty, identity, confidence. On the outside, I looked fine. I was still working, still leading, still providing, but internally, I was drifting, spiritually numb, going through the motions. Faith, something that had once grounded me, slowly faded into the background. Not because I rejected it, but because the pain had a way of exhausting belief. And like many people, I compensated by working harder, pushing faster, chasing productivity instead of purpose. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was living in a storm long before the mountain ever showed up. And turning 50 has a way of forcing honesty. You start asking questions you can't ignore anymore. Is this the life I want to be living? Is this the man I want my kids to remember? Is this all there is? Kilimanjaro wasn't about proving strength. It wasn't a bucket list stunt. It was a line in the sand, a decision to confront discomfort instead of numbing it, to choose discipline over drift, to see what was still inside me after loss, failure, fatigue. I thought I was climbing a mountain, but in reality, I was walking toward myself. Near the summit, everything changed. In the middle of the night, a violent storm hit our camp. Wind strong enough to rip tents loose. Cold so intense, it literally stole your breath. Within minutes, the situation turned dangerous and fast. There was confusion, fear, the realization that control was gone. This wasn't metaphorical adversity. This was real, physical, immediate. I remember thinking, this is how it ends. And strangely, in that moment, clarity came with the fear. When everything unnecessary was stripped away, what mattered became painfully obvious. Faith, people, humility, surrender. The storm didn't just threaten my life, it exposed my heart. Here's the lesson I couldn't escape. Storms don't create character, they reveal it. The mountain didn't break me. It showed me where I had already been broken. Showed me how much of my leadership had become performance instead of presence. How much of my faith had become optional instead of foundational. How much of my life was built on control rather than trust. I came down that mountain changed, not because I reached the summit, but because I survived the storm. Summit after the storm is not a highlight reel. It's not about hustle culture or quick wins or pretending we have it all together, because we don't. This podcast is for leaders, professionals, parents, and people in transition who are carrying weight that they don't talk about. Each episode will explore lessons from the mountain and from life about leadership, faith, resilience, humility, and purpose. Some episodes will be practical. Some will be personal. But all of them will be honest. If you're listening to this and you're in a storm, or you're coming out of one, or you sense one building on the horizon, I want you to know this. The storm is not the end of your story. Sometimes it's the thing that clears the path to the summit that you couldn't reach any other way. The climb continues, and we don't climb alone. Thank you for listening to Summit After the Storm. If this episode resonated with you, I'd invite you to follow the podcast and share it with someone who might need it. In the next episode, we'll talk about what happens after the storm, when the adrenaline fades and the real work begins. Until then, take the next step, one foot after the other. Pole, pole.